ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I want you to lose your minds because you're going to learn some epic shit right now. For my fiance, my soon-to-be hubby, and my partner in Super Connector Media, the one, the only, Chris, the Super Connector Winfield.
Give it up for Jen. All right, let's go. How you guys feeling? Good? All right, thank you. Great job with the music. Thank you, Jen. Thank you for showing all those text messages or Facebook messages. I deleted them on my side, but they still stay on the other, so. If you guys want, like, what she's gonna show you on day 3 is like inside like our checking account and, you know, like medical records and stuff like that, so stay tuned. It'll be fun for you, miserable for me. All right, it is so good to see you all. I am so excited. This is like gonna be such an epic 3 days. I was gonna say a week, but it's gonna feel like a week. We just have so much in store, so many surprises, so many cool things. But what I'm gonna do right now is talk to you about the Super Connector method. So what our whole company and what this event and everything is based on and where it came from. But let me jump right in. If I'd hit the right button. All right, so Super Connector method, this is what it really breaks down to. So the 4 M's, media, marketing, mindset, and money. Because we always want to make sure everything's leading to the money, because it makes the other ones a lot easier. And that's backed up by, so here's media, marketing, money, mindset. Okay, actually, and give $50 to whoever gets this right. And you can't, if you've been here before, you can't answer this. If you add up those things, what is the thing as an entrepreneur you most want? What is the thing that gets you going further? And it's also an M word. Who's gonna get it? The mindset's in there, so you owe me $50. Sorry, you can Venmo or cash, whatever. Not Bitcoin. Momentum. Who said it? I'm not kidding. Let me make sure it's a 50. Yeah, it is. Actually, I was kidding. No, just kidding. No. I'm not. There you go. Buy somebody something. Okay. And who said mindset? Who owes me the 50? So I broke even. I think 2 people. I actually won money on that. Yeah, momentum. Momentum is what we want, right? Momentum is, like, you're going to leave here with momentum every single day, but, you know, we want to perpetually stay within that momentum, keep it going. So how do we do that? That's a good question. Who's that? Yes, no money for that. All right. All right, so it's backed up by this: connections, coaching, curriculum, and community. So we know, like, this is what we're going to be going through here. You know, how this is like what the whole event is based around: connections, coaching, curriculum, community. And that's also going to get us, I wish there was a C word, but there's not, momentum. So you're going to get momentum. This is what we base everything around with the Super Connector method. I'm going to walk you through how that has played out for me, how we wound up here, and all that. Okay. Here's something really, really quick. I have a 12, almost 13-year-old daughter, and we watched this movie. And I remember when I watched the movie, I didn't know what happened until the end. I was like, holy shit. We're watching it for like 5 minutes. She's like, yeah, he's dead. And if you haven't seen this movie and I just ruined it for you, get a life. All right. It was a big, big movie. All right. But how did she know that? Like, I was shocked. All right, anyway, whatever. 6 cents, yes. No money for that. But it's all about dots. For me, it's all about dots. So why do we always play that Steve Jobs? We don't even really like Steve Jobs. You'd think that he sponsors this event, like the Ghost of Steve Jobs sponsors the event. But it's just such a perfect quote that sums up everything, because it's all about those dots. You don't know. Like Jen was talking about us meeting, or her friending me on Facebook, and being much more aggressive and wanting to meet me and date me and all this, and. Yeah, inviting me to weddings and, trying to just land me. And you saw that list. That was the catch. Child, every tattoos. Yeah, okay. One right here, and then I have a giant V on my back. My daughter's name is Vivian. Okay, which Jen probably have pictures of on day 2. All right, let's get into it. So it's all about the dots. It's all about the dots. And for me, the dots have always been about people, like people that you don't even realize, like how they're going to change your life. Like Diana Patton's sitting here in the front row. Diana, we met Diana at, we were both at an event, and she was going crazy and everything, and I turned around to look at her. I was like, who's this person? And, and then she wound up coming up to me, and we talked, and then, she came to this event, and, Jen will talk about, what she does with us now and her business and everything, but it's crazy, how that stuff happens. Eduardo, he used to do Instagram stuff. It's wild. So, how my dots led to my momentum. So how did we get the momentum that Jen was talking about and everything? And I want to break it down, because I think one of the things for an event like this is you see us and you're like, oh, it's easy for them. They live in New York City. Jen's an actress. Chris looks like he dresses really well. No. For 3 days out of the year. So I want to show you how much that wasn't the truth, just because I think it's really helpful. So for me, I hate looking at people's chapter 20. I want to see people's chapter 1. I want to see before they even started writing the book, because what happens to us now so often is, especially because of social media and seeing everyone's highlight reels, we're always comparing ourselves to something that doesn't even exist. Because I know those people that live those perfect lives, and they're not real. Right, Maggie? They are not real. So I think it's so important to break it down, and that's why we do this. All right, so here's where I grew up. Tuxedo, New York. Look at that census right there. There was, at the time of the 2010 census, this town had 3,624 people. When I was there, it probably had 2,000. There were 7 kids in my elementary school class. 7 kids. So then I moved upstate to a smaller town. This is literally the main street. There was one stoplight in my town. It was called Pine Bush. And what Pine Bush was famous for is that. It's the most UFO sightings in the world. Yeah, very esteemed beginnings, right? Your friend's a teacher there? Yeah. Oh, yeah, well, that was going to be my next slide. There you go. And you want to know why? Because I hated school. Yes, thank you, Sam. Because I hated school, and I got in so much trouble in school, and my poor mother was a school psychologist there, and she had people just, stop talking to her and everything, and this is why I have to teach differently and make it fun. So anyway, I had no ambition. There's all these people that say oh, I knew I was going to be an entrepreneur at age 6, and I started lemonades and all this. No, I had no ambition. I had no clue what I wanted to do. All I knew was I didn't want to work in one of those. I didn't want to work in a school because I hated it so much. Sorry to your friend. Cut this part out when you show it to her. Just show her the billboard. So I just knew I didn't want to work in a school. My father was a school psychologist. My mother was a school psychologist. My brother was. My sister. I was just fuck that. I can't do it. So that was my first dot. So I got out of school, and I didn't really have any ambition. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I wound up getting a job. This was towards the end of the dot-com era. I got a job at a web design startup, and there's all these like crazy like valuations for web design companies, and this is what where I thought I was going to work. It looked beautiful, it's fun, like trendy and everything. This is where I wound up working. So, I worked at a place where the CEO was barred from trading stocks, and I didn't know any of this going into this. A family friend had brought me in. He was barred from trading stocks in New York and Connecticut. Another guy was like the number 4 guy in Stratton Oakmont, which is what the Wolf of Wall Street was based on. Like during lunch, he would leave, and I'd be like, oh, where's he going? Oh, he's going to meet with the FBI. I'm like, oh, great. The guy who brought me in, who was the family friend, had left his family and developed a terrible coke problem. He was in rehab by 6 months, and he was the most stable out of everyone. So it was a fun place to start. And my job was cold calling. I would cold call businesses around New York City and try to get them to set up an appointment with us. And you can imagine how nice people are in New York when you call them and ask for stuff like that, right? Not anyone's gonna hang up on you or go tell you to die or tell you that they're gonna come and make you die or anything like that, right? No, none of that happened. So anyway, that was my first stop because I learned everything not to do from that company. And that company stopped paying me at one point, and because they ran out of money. Because they bought this or they leased this $100,000 a month space overlooking the Statue of Liberty, and when the company wasn't making any money. So if anyone is paying attention, that's not a good way to do business. So I wound up leaving, and I started my own company. It was called 10E20 LLC. It started on 10 East 21st Street, and at that time, numbers came up before letters in like directories and things like that. So I was like, okay, cool. Now, when I started this company, I had a few major problems, and these were major. First one, no money. They weren't paying me. I didn't have family money. I didn't have anything saved or anything like that. No connections. So I grew up in these small towns. I didn't really really take advantage of college or anything like that. So I had no connections. I'm known as a super connector. Our company's called Super Connector Media, and at this point, I had no connections. And there's a zillion other companies doing exactly the same thing that we were doing at web design. We were a commodity, just like coaches or doctor, whatever. I could throw a rock and hit a coach in here, like you have to. I won't, because I love you all. But it's so important. You have to differentiate yourself. You have to be different than other people. And I didn't know how to do that. So one day, I was watching TV, not that TV, as you can imagine. That was a trendy photo shoot that somebody did for us. But I'm watching TV, and I was watching CNBC. And there's this guy on there. And he was talking, and I'm like, I didn't even remember what he was talking about. He was talking about his business, and I was like, oh my God, I want to work with this guy. And then I'm like, I want to be this guy. And then I was like, holy shit. Like, what if I could do that for myself? What if I could do that for myself? Like, if I could get that effect, because that had happened to me all the time. Like, if I'm reading a magazine or, online or, whatever. And I would, something would happen. I don't get it. I don't know exactly why, but it's all this, the trust and authority and the credibility, all these things that have happened. So that was my first thought. And I was like, all right, I'm going to figure out how to do that for myself because I couldn't afford to pay for a publicist or anything like that. So I wound up, I was at an event, and I met this lady who was a writer for the New York Times. And she's like, is there anything interesting about you? I'm like, what do you mean? I guess, how interesting do you want it to be? So anyway, it turned out that she was working on a story about remote working. So this was like right when remote working, it's interesting, it's like kind of full circle, but this is right when remote working was just starting to become like a thing. And so I told her, I'm like, yeah, I wear a suit and tie every single day in my apartment. She's like, you do? And I was like, yeah, because I used to do that. And she wound up putting me in, because I was like, oh, if I don't dress formal, I'm going to acting for, somebody had told me that, and it's not really true. I work on my couch now in sweatpants. Like literally, I can only work on a couch. That's a problem, but whatever. So here I am in the New York Times, and you see that. So basically, it talks about my company, but it's not really about me. But what it did do was it got me this, as seen in the New York Times. And I sent that, I plastered that everywhere. I almost got that tattooed onto my forehead. Because I wanted everyone to know that I had that credibility now. So, and that started to help me, started to get some deals, started to get people that I was a little bit different, because if you're comparing one person to another, and one's been in the New York Times, the other hasn't, you're gonna hire the guy in the New York Times. So that was a dot. That started to become bigger. Then the next year, I kept working, and like connecting with people and media, and I would get small articles. But I wound up getting in this article in USA Today. And this article right here, where I say I live, breathe, and die Google, because it's very dramatic, obviously, but that's a good thing. This one mention alone was worth over $1.8 million to me. So this became my first multi-million-dollar client, came directly from that small, tiny little paragraph right there. Somebody, a division of Virgin, contacted me, and they wound up spending about $1.8 million with us over 3 years. And that started to change everything. I was like, oh my God, that is a major, major, major dot. All right. So fast forward a few years, I built that company. I was just about to sell it, and at the last minute, I pulled out of selling it, and I decided to form a bigger company, a bigger agency, and I got all these different like competitors / friends / whatever together, and we formed this company called Blue Glass. And look, the New York Times actually covered it, so kind of a cool thing, and all these other places covered it too. It was a big deal in our industry, and it was a big dot. But I'm going to share something with you. I had this thought in my mind all the time. I'm a fraud. I have imposter syndrome. Do I really know what I'm doing? Because, a lot of the stuff from our childhood just sticks with us. And for me, I'm that kid from that little tiny town, with 7 kids in his class. And, can I really do this? So if you're curious about who has imposter syndrome, there was a very, very, very important study done by Harvard and MIT, and this is what they found. So types of people can have imposter syndrome. This was surprising to me. It turned out that it's all the smart, successful people that you think have their shit together. They can all have imposter syndrome. So think about that the next time that you're worried. All right, but a bigger thing was I became really, so I had started building, my business had become really built and grown by helping other people, really networking, going out of my way for people. But I got really focused on one person instead, me. What could I get out of it? How could you help me? And, and then our company, it started growing, grew to like 100 people. There's me, that is me. In my office, looks very different. And, I became very, very attached to, my identity became very attached to this company and the success of this company, or the perceived success of this company. So often, it's not even, for me, it's not even about the success, it's about what other people think about it. And I don't even know who the people are. I'm like, oh, I wonder what they think about me. And I'm like, who the hell are they? It's like somebody I met on Facebook or something. You know what I mean? Not Jen. So this is me at an event, my own event that I'm throwing, and I am not walking around networking or anything. I'm looking on my phone, and look at the irony. It says, please no social media right behind there. And by the way, I looked like I was doing something really important. I wasn't. I know I wasn't. I was probably looking at, Twitter or something like that. All right. So that brings me to this. So a lot of people have when their lives change, they have like this burning bush moment or, a white light experience. And mine came in the form of a piece of pizza, not the actual pizza. I wish I'd taken a picture of the actual pizza, but whatever. All right. So that company that had grown to about 100 people, we had offices across the country and in London and Switzerland. It was a complete mess on the inside. Terrible. It looked great on the outside. It was a complete mess on the inside. It was like a perfect analogy for me at the time as well. And it was just, it imploded. And I was dealing with going through all this crazy shit. And I'm on the phone. It's a Saturday, late afternoon, early evening. And my daughter, there she is at the time, 3, Vivian Grace. And she walks into the kitchen and she's like, "Daddy, I'm hungry." And I was like, gave her the 1-minute sign. And she's like, because she knew that 1 minute meant like 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes because I wasn't showing up the right way for her either. So she decides to take matters into her own hand. And she goes to the kitchen, over to the refrigerator and takes out a piece of pizza, goes and gets a plate, goes, pushes a chair up to the microwave, starts cooking her own meal. And I'm telling you this not because she's now like a famous chef and she has a pizza place right around the corner. I'm telling you this because for whatever reason, at that moment, that became one of my biggest dots. Because I had this, thank you. Thank you. Because I had this thought, and this was the only thought, there had to be a better way. There had to be a better way for me to live. Because if I am not connected to the person that I am saying is the most important person in my life, how am I showing up for anyone else? As I just mentioned to you, I have a giant V tattooed on my back. But I'm not showing, I can show that outwardly, but if I'm not showing up inwardly and if I'm not showing up for her, I'm not showing up for anyone. So I started to I changed everything. I changed everything about my life. And one of the biggest things for the last 9.5 years, I've met or talked with at least one person every day, no matter what. So I started this experiment where I'm like, all right, I'm not connecting to people, I'm not helping people, I'm not being of service, I'm not learning about people, and so I'm gonna meet with one person, or if it has to be a call, every single day, no matter what. So the second rule was I have to be open, honest, and vulnerable with them. So I have to get up and tell them exactly what's going on with me, and that's hard, because I was living the exact opposite. I would tell you what I thought you wanted to hear. I would tell you how great I was, or, I'm never fearful of anything. So, and then the last part to this experiment, I stopped looking for what I could get and started figuring out how I could help them. So that's the help one person every day came from. So what I would do, and I wouldn't go in and be like, "Hey, what do you need help with?" I would figure out what it was for them. So what I found was, here's the secret. Connections, relationships make everything easier. Everything easier, because unbelievable stuff started happening to me as a result. There's a quote that I love from Robert G. Allen. He says, "Your network is your net worth." How do you value your network? Well, if you don't value it, cultivate it, nurture it, it becomes worthless. If you do value it, it becomes priceless. So I thought about that for myself. I hadn't been doing any of this. I had been focused on me. So I started to really nurture and build that network and being of service to people and helping people. All right, so major dot alert here, an idea. So I'm like, all right, I started running out of people to meet with. So I'm like, I want to meet with more people. I want to meet with people that are really successful. I want to meet with people that I can, really learn from. So we're going to talk about this more, but I came up with this thing where I just started doing lists of people. It's now called the top 20 tool. When I was doing it, it was just called write names down on paper and see if they're going to help you. That doesn't do as well as like a lead magnet, so we call it the top 20 tool. But it was really simple. It was just, and we'll get into this more, so I'll just go through it quickly. But just putting the person's name, doing a brain dump of like whatever your goal is. So if you need this for raising money, if you're trying to get a TV show, if you're trying to get in media, whatever it is, you just use this tool and it works for everything. So like for example, for me, I wanted to meet influential people, so I put their names down of people who could introduce me to influential people. And then like where it says how influential, it would be just like how much could they actually help me Do they have the relationships? How likely are they to help me? Do I have a good relationship with them? And then just add up the scores. So here's some rules around this. Always start with family and friends. They're hopefully, I don't want to make any assumptions, but they're the ones that are going to want to help you. Now, here's the interesting thing. That guy, Arthur Sulzberger Jr., so he was one of the owners of the New York Times. I wound up getting connected to him through my father. Now, I just told you earlier that my father was a school psychologist. You know, he didn't have business connections or anything like that. But here's the interesting thing. My father volunteered for an organization that Arthur was on the board of, and they became close. So he was able to introduce me to Arthur. And Arthur, I met with him in Times Square. Like, I'm like, oh, this is your square, huh? He's like, yeah, I never heard that before. How long is this meeting going to be? And then Arthur introduced me to his VP of marketing. You know, I wound up doing a bunch of stuff with the New York Times as a result. John Tisch, he's multi-billionaire, owns Lowe's Hotels. Got connected to him through another family friend, like all these different things. So always start with family and friends. So list out any groups that you are a part of. So if you're a part of EO or, you know, Unfair Advantage, like whatever it is, our mastermind, think about mentors, teachers, event planners. So you're just wanting to do these brain dumps to get your list down of people that you can connect with. Because so many times that's the fastest way to help grow your business, to help achieve any goal is through somebody else. And then finally, pick up your phone or your laptop or open your laptop, and I'm going to show you some quick ways to do this. So for example, just scroll through your phone. All right, this person can help me, this person can help me, this person can help me. Write their names down, because so often we forget who our people are, you know, that we're connected to. Go and look at your Facebook friends. Oh, look, Jen's at the top. But there's a cool tool that is called, hold on, Friend Filter. So Friend Filter, you can run this on Facebook and see the people who actually are interacting with you, and also all like the bums that don't. You know what's interesting? Since I live in New York, I run into a lot of people in the streets and stuff, and they'll be like, "Oh my God, I love that post." I'm like, "Which one?" And then they'll tell me, I'm like, "Did you really love it? I didn't see you comment. I didn't see you like it." Oh yeah. I forgot. All of them. Anyway, so Friend Filter, you just run this, and it'll show you who is like most active. Diane Strand, yeah, look at you. And then it'll show you all the inactive people, and it's really, really cool. And then you can create a little thing like this, and you can get rid of people. But the reason I'm showing you is get rid of people a lot. Actually, here's a really good hack. Don't all do it at the same time. And you've probably seen people do this, and this is why they're doing it, because I do it myself. You go on Facebook, and you're like, oh, I'm thinking of cleaning out my inactive friends. Comment below if you want to stay. Boom, you get so much engagement. And then you really don't even have to do anything if you don't want to clean them out. It works every time, though. So this will show you, though, who your most active people. So like these would be the people that maybe you would want to go and talk to that could potentially help you. Also, the people you're following on Instagram. And there's another cool tool for Instagram called IG Export. So this is really cool to find like interesting people that follow you or influential people that follow you. So I ran this recently and found like all these like verified people or like had like, you know, crazy business. I wasn't even following a lot of them or connected to them, but then you can reach out to them. It's really cool. It's just a Chrome extension, IG Export. Okay, another thing that you can do, go on LinkedIn, go to your network. I'm going to actually walk you through this with a little video. So let's say I wanted to find all the people in New York City that I wanted to connect with. So then I would go by, come on, Chris, you can do it. Search with filters, let's go. Locations. There you go. So like, let's say if you were focused on your specific city, it's going to bring up all your contacts for there, and then you can just export them with all their information, the ones that you want to talk to. Okay. Or the people, last thing, the people that have been most active or you've most recently talked to on Facebook or Instagram Messenger, because I don't know why, Jen, I don't think we talked that much on on that, but I don't know. So these are just different ways to, create your list, create your people, and this will help for whatever part of your business. Like Timber back there, who just raised a ton of money, through, a lot of it was through your networking, right? Through your network. He had, talk to that guy, he's a rock star. But how much was that through Timber? How much was through your network and working your network? All of it. How much did you raise? $148 million through networking. They have an amazing company. Okay, so $148 million through networking. Unbelievable. All right, let's keep going. All right, so here's what I like to figure out about people. So their name, where are they most active on social media? What big things do they have happening? So every single person has something going on. So for example, one of the best ways to, if there's an influencer or, somebody big in your industry, one of the best ways to connect with them is if they are launching something, especially if it's a book. Because when they're launching a book, right, Maggie, when you're launching a book, you are at your, you're scared, because it's you're putting yourself out there. But if you do bulk book buys, wow, say that 3 times fast, or, get them in front of your audience, it is such a good way to create relationships. Buy 100 books, and it costs you $2,500. But it'll build that relationship so quickly. We've done that so many times. Many of the books that are that you'll see are built relationships that way. How can I help them right now? So what can you do? And it doesn't have to just be about your business. It doesn't, let's say somebody's planning, that they're planning a vacation or something, or they're going somewhere and you've been there. Someone's going to Ireland, Patricia, and you're oh, I know Ireland, here's the best pub, and all this. So thinking about ways that you can help them. And then what do we have in common? So this one's important because so often there's things I call first degree issues. So for example, that could be addiction, that could be COVID. It could be, miscarriage. Is there a big thing that you might have in common? It could also be that you're from the same town. It doesn't have to be something bad. But, oftentimes one of the best ways to, bond with somebody is around those big things. And who do I know that could possibly connect me to them? This one's so important. So what I try to do, and I'm going to walk through this tomorrow, when I talk about win-win relationships, but what I try to do is I try to get multiple people to connect me to the person. I get introductions from multiple people, so they're who the hell is this guy? I gotta know him. So thinking about that, if you want to take a quick picture of that little that little card right there, that if you can do that, it's gonna help you so much with creating relationships with people. Okay, big dot. Thank you. Thank you, one person. Thank you all now. I went from really liking that one person and hating you all to now loving you all. Big dot. All right, I'm going to break this down how I did this. Let me back up for a second. When that agency imploded, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew what I didn't want to do. I didn't want to do the same thing that I had been doing. And I got really into personal development. I got really into productivity. So I'm all right, I'm going to create a business around that. So here's a friend of mine, Neil Patel. Who knows Neil? Okay, cool. So Neil's a really well-known guy, and I love showing this because Neil, multi-zillionaire, whatever. But he's a great marketer. But this shows you how important media is. Look how many times it says something about the media in his first 2 lines of his bio. He's a New York Times bestselling author, Wall Street Journal. Number 2, Forbes says he's one of the top 10 marketers. Entrepreneur Magazine said he created one of the top 100 most brilliant companies 4 times in the first 2 lines. So Neil and I, we got to know each other through speaking at the same stages. There he is. I'm the guy in the middle. And, we were also in articles together and all this type of stuff. So one day, Neil and I met up, and Neil happens to write for all these different places. And I wanted to start building my credibility. I had no credibility in this new area that I was in. So I wanted to start building it by writing in magazines, things like that. So after we met, I sent him a message, and I said, great seeing you yesterday, blah, blah, blah. He was gonna move to New York City, so I hooked him up with a real estate agent, before he even asked, and all this. And, help before I even ask him for anything. Okay, and by the way, these are all the exact emails and exactly what they said, obviously. So here's the next email that I sent him. When we met, you suggested I start doing guest posts. I kind of brought it up, and then I was like, do you think it'd be a good idea? And then when I wrote him, I was like, you suggested it. When we met, you suggested I start doing guest posts and columns, and I'm ready to attack this in a big way. You mentioned you'd be happy to do some intros. Again, I suggested it. As a refresher, I'm really focused on productivity, entrepreneurship, motivation, personal development. Why did I say that? Because he knew me as a marketer and internet marketer and search engine optimization. I don't want to do any of that, so I had to be really, really careful. So I said, please let me know. And by the way, you can just copy all these. Just change names. Please let me know if you want me to write an intro that you could forward along or anything you need from me. So why, the third one's really important. You always want to make things as easy as possible for people. So if you're like people that are trying to get blurbs for your books or things like that, like write it out for people and give them a choice. Like make things so easy that all they have to do is say yes. Yes. Okay, so that started on January 7th. So boom, here he is introducing me to his editor. And if you look at it, why I highlighted the part in yellow is that gives me credibility. So even though that has nothing to do with what I'm gonna be doing, it's good for them to know that I've worked with brands such as Disney, Virgin, Macy's, Viacom, Condé Nast, blah, blah, blah. And again, it's just like those are credibility markers. So think about what those are for you. Now, always, after I responded to that lady, the editor from Inc. magazine, immediately, and I always have a call to action. And the call to action is something that people can answer just yes or no, right? So would you like me to supply you with some ideas I had for columns? Yes. Yes, so that's all she has to say. She doesn't have to, some convoluted thing. So she said, hi, Chris, send over a writing sample, something indicative of what you'd write for us, and 10 story ideas. Thanks. So guess what I sent her? That's Diana, the editor. I sent her 10 story ideas. I didn't say, here's 5. If you really need the other 5, I'll send them to you. And then I just said, please let me know what the next step is. Make it so simple. All she has to do is say, here's the contract, Chris. And that's what she said. These are great. Thanks for sending these over. Blah, blah, blah. I'm attaching a getting started guide and a contract. And boom. All right. So this started on the 7th. By the 13th, I had a contract, and they were paying me to write. And by the 29th, I was on Inc. And this was starting to... So why am I showing you this? Because I had zero credibility in this area, and I needed credibility because it was a brand new business for me, and I wanted to be able to, people were paying based on, my coaching or things like that, and I wanted to make sure. So this is something that helped me so unbelievably much. Huge dot. And then, I kept writing for them. My stuff still gets shared all the time. That article had 250,000 views. Major dot. But let's go a little bit further, okay? Yes. Okay, cool. So what I started to do with that, with the stuff that I was building up, I put it into my funnel. So this is something that is really helpful for your autoresponders. So it would, somebody would download a lead magnet or something like that. And one of the things I would say after giving them the link to download it, it said, reply to his email right now and tell me one thing that you're struggling with. You'll be amazed at how much better it'll feel getting it off your chest, just replying, hi, I love meeting my subscribers, blah, blah, blah. So that is such a small little hack that you can use because it will start to tell you what the burning pains of your audience actually are, not what you guess them to be. And then you can use that information for, figuring out what products you're going to offer, figuring out what marketing materials are going to be. So, for example, I would get this stuff like this all the time. Number one thing I'm struggling with right now is taking the very first step and doing a hard, boring task that I must do, deadline looming, blah, blah, blah. And what I would then have that done is I would have a VA put those into a spreadsheet. And then they would list them out based on, what the issue was. And then from there, I'd be able to build products out based on what people actually wanted, not what I just would guess at. Now, on the same time, I had all these articles that I had been writing. So we had this little database where it would just say, like, let's say that somebody had wrote in saying, I'm struggling with procrastination. So then all the person had to do was go in and type in procrastination. There would be an article that I'd most likely written about that. So then when we would respond to them, it would just say, thanks a lot for sharing this with me. I really appreciate taking the time. Check out this article I wrote and see if it helps you. Now, why would I do that? 2 reasons. 1, it answers their question. 2, it's showing them that I write for Inc. It's showing them that I have extra credibility. And then, I get actual, responses and actual people that are going to be with me for life as a result. Thank you so much for the article. Yes, this will help. And thanks for also being a real human who reads and responds. You're a rare species, so watch out for zookeepers. Shelley's pretty funny. All right, let's fast forward this again. Can't connect the dots looking forward. So, started doing these dinner parties, bringing together like influencer people in New York City with a friend of mine, Selena. And here was one that we were doing for this guy. Pat Flynn had come into town. He has a pretty big podcast called Smart Passive Income. And at that dinner, I want to show you how dots connect with people. I met a couple of guys. Todd Herman, he's a best-selling author of a book called The Alter Ego Effect. He works with a lot of billionaires and high-performance athletes. And this guy, Ryan Lee, who doesn't do any of that stuff. No, just kidding. I love Ryan. He has an energy drink company. And as a result, we wound up Whose was it? I'm just kidding. Was it the time? Are you working with us now? Am I over time? Okay. So one of the things that I constantly want to do, whether that's in my team, whether that's with groups that I'm a part of, is surround yourself with people who can make you better. Hopefully that's why you're here, right? Surround yourself with people who can make you better. And so we wound up forming this this small mastermind group. It was called the Dad Mastermind. We were all dads, and that was it. The other guy is Jonathan Fields. He has one of the top-rated podcasts in the world called Good Life Project, and multi-best-selling author. So, as a result of me, still at this time, I'm building, this business, but they looked at me one day. Actually, I'm going to go back. They looked at me one day, and they said, Chris, why are you not teaching people what you actually know? I was like, fuck you. What do you mean? They're like, well, anytime that we describe you to somebody, we call you our unfair advantage. I was like, really? What do you mean? And they said, well, you can just take out your phone and in 30 seconds, get us in the media, introduce us to an agent, all these things. And I thought about it. It was just relationships. And then besides, put so much into that. So I, just let that go in my head and thought about it. And so anyway, my friend Todd here was having this big event in San Diego, and ticket sales were terrible. And I said, I'm going to help you, Todd. And I helped him with no expectation. I helped him with the marketing. I helped him sell it out. I crushed it on stage for him. I did everything. And he's like, what do you want? Do you want money? Or I'm like, no, I don't need anything from you. But there's something called the law of reciprocity. What's the law of reciprocity? Just one person yell it. Yeah, that was really bad. It was it's like a mumble answer. So does one person who feels really confident about their answer, please stand up and say it with pride.
What you give will return to you.
Thank you. Give her a hand. Now, the interesting thing, it doesn't even have to come from that person, but it's going to come from somewhere. So in this case, it actually came directly from Todd. So Unfair Advantage, he was like, you got to do something around this. Like, and I started talking to all these different people, entrepreneurs, and no one understood how to really get media. It was like this black box to so many people, and it was always very easy for me. And so he had this event. He had a mastermind group that would meet on a Monday and then another one that met on a Wednesday. So there was a day in the middle where all these people were going to be there, and these were all my perfect people. And so he's like, let's do the event, this Unfair Advantage on that day. And I planned it like the day before, and had all these different media people come in, and it was amazing, and it was really, really, really powerful. This is what it looked like back then, and now it looks a little bit different, with Jen and all this, and it was a one-day event, and then it became a 2-day and 3-day, blah blah blah. Okay, and as a result, we grew our company out of this, just listening to people. So that was a major dot. And just to, like, as an example, I'm going to show you this.
Chris used to have a
Here's
marketing
Neil.
agency years and years ago, and at the time when I was running one too, funny enough, I still have one, but when I was running one too, I was like, how are you always getting on Good Morning America, like Fox Business, CNBC? And he's just like, I just get on there. And I learned that Chris himself is super well connected in the PR space, and he had this formula. And at first I thought, oh, maybe it was Chris, maybe they just like him, his personality. And although he has amazing personality, but he was able to do that, him and Jen, and replicate it for many different businesses in all sectors. And I haven't seen anyone able to do PR like the way they do it. And it's super cost effective compared to what I was used to paying, like the Outcasts and some of those big, huge PR companies who charge massive retainers and get little to no result.
So I'm showing you that. So why am I showing you that? Because again, dots connecting. So that's how he was introducing us to his high-level mastermind, and where Jen and I were speaking about PR. So think about like where it started with Neil, and then where it went to, and then here. And then here's an interesting thing. This woman, he connected me to right after, and this woman had sold, 6 companies, Jen, for over 100 million, and she was petrified of the media. She had actually been on the cover of like Inc. in India or something, and like she's like, I never showed anyone. I don't want to brag. I'm like, oh my God. So anyway, like literally from that one, like we did a quick presentation. He connected us to her, and we wound up helping her out with some training. And she literally sent us a $100,000 wire, like just it's because she was like so blown away. Literally, like it's just crazy how dots connect. So, this is what the dots look like for me, Media, marketing, money, mindset. I'm going to give you one last example, and then I'm going to get out of here. Not really, but, it's like something you say. All right. My friend Amy Lacey here. So the second time I ever did Unfair Advantage Live, it was, I'm going to tell you some super fast story before I get into this. I do everything last minute. And with this event, it was going to be a 2-day event. It was $5,000. People had flown, and one woman had literally flown in from Bali. There was about 70 people. And I had an event planner. I had really no team at that time. And I get to the actual place, and I go to plug in my laptop to the projector. The projector doesn't work. And I'm like, all right, it's 9:05, 9:10, 9:15, nothing's working. I'm like waving to people, like this is part of it. And then by like 9:45, I realize this projector's not gonna work, and I'm screwed. So, is that like your worst nightmare, right? Yeah. Like think about that, sit in that feeling for a minute. I'm getting uncomfortable remembering. And anyway, what we're going to do later is something that came directly out of that. So what we're going to do right after this is what came as a result of that not working. So it's actually a little magical thing. So stay tuned. And then the thing finally started working like around 11. Yeah, no problems. All right. Anyway, this woman, Amy Lacey, had come to the event. And Amy was building a company called Cauliflower Pizza. And Cauliflower Foods. She had lupus, and she having family pizza nights every Friday was a big part of their tradition. So she wanted to still be able to make pizza. So she came up with, she literally invented using cauliflower as a pizza crust. There's a great meme, if cauliflower can become pizza, you can become anything. And she proved it. So anyway, she was traveling so much. Her husband hated her traveling, all this. But somebody had told her about the event, and she went and talked to him, and he's like, you have to go to that event. Now, you know why he said that? He had seen one of my articles, about time management or something. He's like, that guy actually knows what he's doing. So crazy. I didn't learn that till way later. So anyway, Amy gets up, and, she's talking, and, she's talking, and, she's like, she had lost $265,000 her first year in business. And she was on track now, right here when she stood up, she was on 4 million. She had really rebounded, built this amazing community. And so we wound up doing this day together, a VIP day. That's the only thing I was selling. I had no back end or anything like that. And so she says, I know this investment will take Cauliflower Foods to the next level. Here's what I told her during that day. I was like, you're going to do $20 million in revenues this year. And she was like, what? She's like, I'm at 4, right? And I was like, yeah. So I just put that in her head, and we, put out a whole, came together with a whole plan. And one of the things I wanted to do was start building up her credibility. So this is where the dots start connecting for her. And this is going to be stuff that you guys are going to learn how to do for yourselves over the next couple of days. So this is me reaching out to a writer on her behalf who works for Entrepreneur Magazine and who focused on women's leadership. So here's, take pictures, whatever. These are the exact things. So I wanted her to know, about Amy's background, and, also that she does, she has a female, everything was female in her company and all this, and she's an amazing leader. The other thing that I wanted Amy to really focus on, and for all of us to know, is that your mess is your message. Your mess is your message. So often we think we have to be perfect, right? We think our messages have to be perfect, our stories have to be perfect. It's not the case. So when Amy started to actually share who she really was, her whole thing, things started to change. So here, how the founder of this multi-million-dollar food brand found the confidence to be CEO. So for her to admit, listen, I didn't feel confident. As a woman, I didn't feel confident. And boom, she gets a feature in Entrepreneur Magazine as a result. Or here she is in CNBC talking about how her lupus diagnosis inspired her to sell cauliflower pizza crust, now bringing in millions. So those are some dots that started to connect for her, and light bulbs went off, and she started getting all these things. And she, just like Jen talked about earlier, she said to me, and she said this low, she was like, I want to write a big book. So she had done a self-published one, and it hadn't really done much for her. She's like, I want to write a really big book, with a big publisher, and it was a dream of hers, and especially if it could be a cookbook. I was like, all right, here we go. So I thought of a perfect agent for her. This woman, Celeste Fine, who, coincidentally, there's Maggie Berghoff right there, also introduced her to Celeste, and she wrote a big book. So Maggie, what's up? So here's exactly what I emailed to Celeste, because Amy's like, well, they're not going to be interested in me. I'm like, they're going to be interested in your community. Because at that point, she had 170,000 people on her mailing list, 58,000 people on Facebook, 40,000 on Instagram. All those numbers are, so much bigger. And then here was the main thing that I wanted them to know. The company went from negative 250,000 last year to doing 4 million. She thinks they'll end up by 6 million at the end of the year. Okay. So big dot. What wound up happening for Amy Lacey was going from, I'm not going to be able to get a book, to having a bidding war between the 3 biggest publishers, and her eventually signing with Abrams. And there's her cookbook. And there's her dedication to me. Much appreciation. I was eating it. It's supposed to be funny. Much appreciation to my business coach, Chris. Thank you for introducing me to my book agent, setting in motion the fulfillment I dreamed to create a cookbook. And this cookbook helped propel so much growth and so much credibility for them. And it became a bestseller and all this stuff. Big dot.
My name is Amy Lacey, and I own, and I was the founder of Cauliflower Foods. So I came in 2017, and my husband encouraged me to go because he saw an article that Chris wrote. When I went to the event, my business had gone from negative $269,000 to $5.2 million. So Chris had me up and saying that. And then he said on the side, so what's it going to be next year? And he goes, it's going to be 20 million. Say it, it's going to be 20 million. And I was like, it's going to be 20 million? Like, no way is it going to be 20 million? And it ended up being in 2018 a little over 20 million. And so when Chris gave me a list of things to do, I actually for once followed up. And what I did was I reached out to some of these different people, one being Sterling Lord. I ended up pitching my idea for a cookbook. Sterling Lord pitched me to several publishers, and I ended up getting 3 offers. And I ended up taking the offer with Abrams, and I got a 6-figure book deal, which was, I mean, there was the ROI was like, you can't even count the ROI on that. It's like times whatever from UA. I decided through a lot of advisors in my business to leave the program and go with a traditional PR firm and a traditional influencer firm. In order for them to do different kind of media things, I had to pay extra, because that was just for their basic services. And so I realized, I told my team and this set of advisors, I said, you know what? I'm giving them a notice that I'm going this way, because it's about building relationships. It's about authenticity. It's about what my product represents. What does the agency do that I hired? They don't pay it forward. What does Chris and Jen do? And anybody in this room knows this. They pay it forward. So I'm internally just very grateful for them.
It gets better. Okay, so just also getting her out into podcasts and things like that. So this was one of my friends. She was actually in a mastermind that I ran, Farnoosh Tarabi. Yeah, Patricia, did you? Yeah, you've been on there. Yeah, so she has one of the top rated podcasts in the finance. So you're like, what does that have to do with cauliflower pizza, Chris? Well, one of the things was that, like, if I reach out to somebody like Farnoosh, like, this is what she said. Chris has changed the way that I think about my work, my relationship. Just 1 year, he's changed my life. So she knows that I'm going to hook her up with the best people. So here, when Amy went on her podcast, what we did was, since it was a personal finance, we gave them a coupon, right? Makes sense. Give them a coupon so that they're going to save. So here, Amy texted me, and she's like, that spike was during the East Coast AR Farnoosh. I'm seeing ROI in it. But this is cool, and this is like what we always want, and like to be able to give back. But more importantly, announce a new employee give back program for Cauliflower, and today Ruba gets to pick her cause, and we'll educate our community on it. Okay, ... Fast forward. Here's how she would describe on Fox Business.
Take a bite into some cauliflower pizza and check out this week's Everyone Talks to Liz podcast episode. That's Cauliflower Queen and founder of Cauliflower Foods, Amy Lacey. She is going to share, it's so inspirational, how a lupus diagnosis led her to create a $1 billion brand filled with healthy and tasty cauliflower crust pizzas and dishes. Invest in your health today and tune in. Available on Apple, Google, and FoxNewsPodcast.com. Listen, when you hear these stories, you'll realize you could do it too.
Major dot. So Amy wound up being able to sell a big part of cauliflower. Bought her dream house. Basically bought dream houses for like her whole family. And then she gets to do stuff like this, where she's going on different TV stations and being able to be like that face. And this was amazing. Like, she gave away like a huge check to this woman who runs something for homeless people, and it was amazing. And this was on Good Morning America, so her TV started to shift to that, right? And you know, it just keeps going on and on with her. And you know, now a big part of what Amy does is mentor women, especially in the food industry, and you know, people are building products and things like that. So big dot. Big momentum, right? You see how quickly that can happen? See how quick? So just as a reminder, media plus marketing plus money plus mindset equals boom. All right. Connections plus coaching, plus curriculum, plus community equals momentum. Let's go. All right. Last thing I want to leave you with is this. So what if, this is what I want you to think about before we break. You believed a little more than you didn't. You trusted the process. So like Amy, hopped on that plane and trusted the process. You allowed your dots to connect. You truly let yourself be seen and transform the lives of millions of people. What if Amy allowed all that stuff to happen, and you saw, I just showed you everything with her, and there's so much more. But what if that was you? And I truly believe it can be, and it will be. And let's go.